are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And today we're going to be talking about some Senior Bowl stuff, Landon. We've got some actual Cowboys news to talk about. So let's get right into it. But how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Hopefully everybody back home in Dallas has survived Winter Storm Landon, I'm being told that it was called.
Yeah.
First of all, apologize for that. Second of all, hope everyone's warm and in a safe spot, because I know it's been a problem at times. So my thoughts are out to the people of Dallas right now.
We wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Get Upside. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code Touchdown to get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back on your first tank. All right, Landon, let's get to the Cowboys related news before we talk about the Senior Bowl. Yeah. Let's start with Rich Dalrymple, who I believe it was Dallas Morning News reported yesterday that he will be retiring. Rich was always so good. He's so good at his job. You've seen him all the time in all the Cowboy videos. He's standing on the sidelines. He's standing at the press conferences. What's your favorite Rich Dalrymple moment?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be fix this ish, Rich. I mean, that's got to be the best one, right?
That's the best one, right?
I mean, honestly, I think the best Rich Dalrymple story, or whatever you want to call it, is that we know his name.
Yeah,
like how many
what
other teams
guy do you know by name?
Exactly. How many other teams do you know their PR guy? I mean, that's probably a commentary on the Dallas Cowboys overall, but I just think, it shows how long he's been with the team, how much he has meant for the team at different points. PR is not it's a glamorous position, but it's not a position that's necessarily looked upon with a lot of good thoughts from people that are trying to get to the truth, or trying to get to what is happening. But I think that Rich, behind the scenes, besides also trying to make the Cowboys look good, I think he's done a lot for the players themselves. The players themselves seem to really, really like him. I know that Dez, actually, speaking of, put out a really nice little tweet about how real he thought Rich was. So, for that front, you got to applaud the guy, and kudos to him, man. I mean, I'm sure he's going to retire to an incredible life. 30 years with the Dallas Cowboys, making them into one of the most visible franchises in the world, the most visible sporting franchise in the world. So, congrats to him, and all the best in the future.
That's a tough job, to be the PR guy for the Joneses in the Cowboys coach.
Specifically, Jerry Jones. Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, at one point, Rich Dalrymple had to be the PR person for Jerry Jones and Bill Parcells at the same time. Can you imagine what that was like? And also Jimmy Johnson, and Jerry Jones at the same time. So, and I mean, not to mention, frankly, really any of these head coaches at some point was probably some sort, except for Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett was too robotic to really make him nervous. But I mean, geez, like having to kind of, I just when I think of Rich Dalrymple, I think of him sitting with his arms crossed, standing on the side of the press conference, is just going, "Don't say something stupid. Don't say something stupid. Don't say something stupid. Don't say something stupid." That's what I imagine Rich Dalrymple did for 30 years, basically.
What a career! Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome Cowboy. All right, one more bit of news. Dallas Morning News also reported that Michael Gallup is set to have his ACL surgery, I believe, today on Thursday. Is it surprising to you that it's been like a month since he's tore his ACL, that we still haven't had a surgery yet?
I guess. I mean, at the same time, like in the article, it said that it suggested that this is a normal amount of time to wait for the swelling to go down. That
seems like a long time, though. Like it's normally a week or two. What he tore that week, was that week 17?
It's been like at least 6 weeks, right? Like it's been
a long time.
It's been a while. So, I mean, I guess, again, I don't know. It does seem odd, but at the same time, like, I don't know that there's anything, unless the injury is more severe than they're letting on, or more severe than we're realizing. I don't know that there's anything weird here. The one thing I did think about was, the kind of new thing that's going around a little bit is this new they call it the bear technique, right? For repairing ACLs, it's supposed to greatly cut down recovery time. So maybe they're planning on using that technique, and so therefore they don't need to like immediately get on the surgery because the recovery time isn't as bad. So that's the only thought I could think of. I mean, like I said, in the article, they implied that this was a normal amount of time to waiting for the swelling to go down.
We'll say
it just, I don't know. I mean, it seems longer than some of the other ACL surgeries that we see typically with dealing with football teams all the time.
All I know, if I was a team that needed a receiver and I was looking at signing Gallup to like a 1-year deal, I would be terrified, right? Like, and we have what, 7-8 months until week 1. I mean, I know you can come back from that, but most players aren't themselves 7 or 8 months after the surgery. I don't know. This one would make me nervous. I'm not sure what I would do if I was a free agent team that needed a receiver and Gallup was on my radar.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anything that we can say to make NFL teams shy away from Michael Gallup, I'm willing to say that right here. Like,
okay,
don't sign him because
let's back up though.
Yeah,
let's say that Cedric Wilson and Gallup both want to sign 1-year prove-it deals this offseason, and the Cowboys only have cap space for one. I almost would be inclined to take Wilson knowing that he's going to be healthier going into the season than Gallup. And Gallup's a better player without a doubt. But do I really want to sign a guy coming off an ACL injury who also dealt with a calf injury last year? Like, I just don't know.
I think that's a legitimate point. I kind of tend to think I would agree with you. I mean, I honestly would prefer to sign Wilson at this point. If we're talking about dueling 1-year deals for prove-it deals, I mean, even with the ACL injury, Gallup's is going to be more expensive than Cedric Wilson's is. And
what if the price is the same though? What if it's 1 year, $4 million for both? Which one would you rather have this year for the Cowboys?
I mean, $4 million for Michael Gallup seems incredibly cheap.
But is he going to be healthy in October?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. Like, if they're using this new technique, right? Like, and again, not to go too far into that, but from what it sounds like, these guys, they can do something that they bridge ligaments from another part, a newer part that they haven't done before, and they're sprinting in 4 weeks. So, like, maybe the time frame works so that he's going to be ready if they're using that. Okay. It's a difficult question. I think on the surface, not knowing, I would say Cedric Wilson and then maybe draft a guy as well. I think that's probably the safer route at this point, but I don't know. Like, I think the good news is that the guy that's doing the surgery is your team doctor, if I'm not mistaken. So you probably could get some pretty good insight on exactly how long the return is for this sort of thing.
So I believe there's still like 6 weeks until free agency. It might even be 7 weeks. I guess we'll have a better idea where Gallup is at, right? Like, if this is true that like these guys are back to running in 5-6 weeks, maybe we'll know. Maybe the Cowboys won't be scared off about bringing him back, or another team won't be afraid of giving him a long-term deal. I think it's just something, Landon, we're going to have to check back in here in a few weeks.
Keep in mind that because this is the team doctor, that's the other thing. The Cowboys will have the best information here on exactly what Gallup's situation is. So that's a
good point. That's a very good point. All right, I want to talk about the Senior Bowl. But before we do that, we should tell you guys about Get Upside. Our listeners are earning cash back for every single gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and use promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. Cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making up to $300 a year in cash back, and there's absolutely no catch. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card, and just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. All right, Landon, day 2 of the Senior Bowl has passed. We're currently watching day 3. I've got it up on one of the screens. Same kind of thing as we saw the last couple of days. One of the themes that you and I were talking about before the show started is it's the same kind of guys that play, that performed well on Tuesday, also performed well on Wednesday. And
Yeah.
that's what you like to see. You like to see that
Yeah.
consistency. So I know you watched the tape last night. Who stood out to you?
I mean, again, it's the same. It's the same guys like you mentioned. I saw a lot of Jermaine Johnson. I saw a lot of. I thought Zion Johnson didn't have quite the same day that he had previously. I think, but I think he still had a really solid day.
They played him a lot at center yesterday. It seemed like.
Yeah, and I gotta say the other thing too is that this field just didn't look like it was in great shape. Like they were slipping a lot, and there was just a lot of people losing their feet, and just a lot of rain. But I will say that as good as Zion Johnson was, I think I've seen now why and where he struggles when he does struggle. Right, like when he struggles, it's because he stops moving his feet. And then you started to see, and I think part of that was because he's had, he was trying to anchor. Yeah. And he was trying to anchor, and then he just lost his footing.
I saw him once just completely slide backwards. He had his feet planted and he slid.
There was one point, where he was taking on, I think it was Travis Jones, right? And like he engages with him, he gets his feet pointed outward, and he bends to anchor. And then instead of like anchoring and stopping, his feet just go out from underneath him, and he's on his knees trying to block the guy up. And it was like, I don't think that's going to work against a guy who's got 35 pounds on you. But I mean, I think, it was kind of interesting to see that angle or that side of these guys, and see them kind of trying to deal with bad footing and see how they react to that.
Can I stick with Johnson just really quickly before we move on?
Yeah, please.
I feel like he's in a little bit of a tough spot this week too, because he's playing left guard, center, and right guard, and most of his snaps during team period are playing at center, because I'm not sure that team has another center that they feel comfortable getting through practice with. He's clearly a left guard for me, at least.
Yeah. Well, they don't have any center that's as good as even Zion Johnson improving at center. That's the problem, right?
Who took his first career snap at center on Tuesday. He never has done it before.
And I don't know if you were paying attention, but I was like, when he was doing his center snaps one-on-one, I was certainly obviously watching the engagement that he had with the defensive line. But part of what I was watching was to see how the snaps were getting back to the guy that was playing quarterback, right? Yeah. Because, I mean, it didn't look perfect, to say the least.
No. Well, you wouldn't expect it after day 2 of him doing it, right?
I do think it's a little bit good for him for listening and following through, but I think his agent's got to be pulling his hair out right now, right?
Although I kind of think this is going to work in favor for him, because now he can go to draft meetings and say, hey, I've practiced and played all 5 spots on the offensive line.
Sure.
And hey, the more you can do, if you need me in a pinch to go play center, I can do that, right? And here's a bunch of snaps of me doing that against some of the best college players in the nation. I just like him a lot. There was one play, and I know I'm pretty sure I said it to you, where they were running a screen in team period, and he got out in space and made the block. And like, just it's pretty hard for a guy of his size to do that. I'm very impressed by him.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's impressive that that you're able. It's kind of a difficult balance, right? Is like you want to go out there and put your best foot forward, and that usually entails you playing a position that you're familiar with. Obviously, position versatility is so valued, especially at the offensive line and in the interior. So him doing that is going to give him bonus points. But I'm sure his like I said, his agent is watching this and going, "This is not the best he can play. This is crazy." But
it's not fair that some of the other offensive linemen get to stay at their natural position, and he's got to play all the other ones. But
it gives him a double bump, right? It's like, okay, A, he has the versatility, and B, he's coachable and willing to do what the coaches ask. Like, those are both things that he's going to get big bonus points for.
I really like him. He is a good player. All right, I just want another guy that really stood out to me over the last couple of days is Logan Hall, the defensive tackle from Houston. And I'm pretty sure we talked about him yesterday, but 6'6", 280 pounds. Plays on the edge, when you watch his college tape and play inside. I was trying to find like a comp for him, and I kind of came up with like Michael Bennett a little bit.
Okay.
He is so quick playing defensive tackle, and he's won so many reps this week. He's destroyed some of the team stuff. I really like Hall. I think he's a good player.
What was the name of the kid? Was it Peyton Turner?
Peyton Turner from Houston, same school, went in the first round last year to the Saints.
similar body types too, right?
Yeah.
Like they were
Yep.
kind of tall, long players, inside out types, but they were more finesse-y than they
Yes.
were
Yep.
physical power players.
Yep.
So Bennett's a good comparison there because I think that's Bennett's game too, right? Like he looks big and strong and tough, but really he wins by being big and quick more than
Right.
being, strong
He's
and
just
big.
not a 305-pound defensive tackle that's going to hold up against the run. It's just not his game.
Yeah, and guys like that are kind of interesting to see, how they can be deployed because, you don't want him inside necessarily to play the run. Like you
Right.
could probably kick him down to do some pass rushing and stuff, but he's not a guy that you necessarily want playing defensive tackle when a run happens, which is one of the things that really made Michael Bennett really good, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
despite, that's why you don't always kick in a bunch of defensive ends down to defensive tackles because when they run the ball, you get
Yep.
screwed. But Bennett was not that way. Bennett was able to hold his own there. So it'll be interesting to see if this guy can do some of that stuff. But I feel like more than likely, this is a guy that you are playing early downs on the outside
Mhm.
and then kicking in when on known pass rushing situations. But yeah, I've been really impressed by him, just kind of consistently showing up. As well as a guy like Devontae Wyatt, I thought,
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about him
Yeah.
a little bit yesterday. The more I watch Wyatt, the more I think that this is probably, I mean, again, I'm very early in this process,
Both of us
way
are. Yep.
earlier than you,
Yep.
but he is right now my favorite pass rushing defensive tackle that I've seen. I mean, he just has the juice, he has the quickness, he has the size you want. I think that who's the kid from Oklahoma? Winfrey?
Perry and Winfrey. Now that is an
He's another
interesting
guy.
player.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's talk about him a second. What were your thoughts on him?
On Winfrey. So I watched Oklahoma a lot during the season as I'm an adopted Sooners fan. And in that Alex Grinch defense, it's all like slants and kind of stuff. Like the defensive linemen are doing weird things.
Yeah.
But you put him in a situation where he can just get up the field and rush the passer. He's kind of terrifying because he's so long and he knows how to use his arm length and he's
Yeah.
got some quickness to his game.
Yeah.
I talked to somebody yesterday who said going into the week he was like a 5th or 6th round pick. He might be like a top 50 pick now because you just don't see guys that have that kind of size and athleticism very often.
It's just weird to me that OU consistently seems to put out these types of players that they recruit these guys
Yep.
who are really good fits for what they don't do.
They're
Like,
athletes. They get these
Yeah.
athletes and they basically put them in situations where they can't be athletes.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, we've been doing this with Oklahoma defensive linemen for years. I mean, what was the name of the kid, Charles, the defensive end that
Oh, why can't I think of it? But they've had all these, right?
Yeah.
Eric Stryker was the one a while ago that they had that was like that.
I mean, even Gallimore, like Gallimore still, like I think they kind of, when he was at OU, they kind of stripped a lot of stuff away to make it easier for Gallimore to just get upfield and go, as opposed to a lot of their other defensive linemen. But it's just we've seen over and over again these guys from OU. They have the athletic profile that you're looking for as defensive linemen. They're incredible athletes, but they learn just unusual techniques to kind of fit what they're trying to do in college, and it doesn't quite translate one-to-one into what they're going to do in the NFL. And what happens is that it provides an opportunity for NFL teams to potentially get a diamond in the rough, right? Because you have this incredible athlete who suddenly you change schemes and he's going to hopefully be a lot better than he was in college. But at the same time, it's like these guys are incredible athletes that go to this college with the idea of hopefully promoting themselves and getting into the NFL. And what does it do? The program basically suppresses their ability and kind of grinds them into be part of this system. And then, we'll see how the draft process works out for you on the other side of graduation.
Charles Tapper was the guy that you were thinking.
Thank you.
But they've had other ones like Jordan Phillips is a defensive tackle who has a really good career in the NFL, and he basically did nothing. Oh man, is it Okaranko who the Rams drafted, who was like another one of these athletic edge rushers who fell in the draft. Playing really well for the Rams now. So like they have a bunch of these guys. Ronnie Perkins last year. Remember, Ronnie Perkins was an edge rusher they had.
All these guys fit that same mold, right? They're incredible athletes for the position that they play. But the position that they play for this team The techniques are completely different than what they would do almost at any other college, and definitely what they're going to do in the NFL.
I agree. All right. I've got a couple other names I want to talk about, some good, some bad. But let's take a quick break so we can tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues with the Super Bowl next weekend. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new and amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also want to tell you guys about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? And why you have to wait for a person behind the computer who orders the same exact parts that you could go do right now online? Go to rockauto.com and write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. They always have amazing selections, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Family business, serving auto parts to customers for over 20 years. You know you're going to get the best prices. Again, rockauto.com. All right. A couple other players that stood out to you, Landon. I'll give you a guy in a bad way. Trey McBride, the tight end from Colorado State. I was hoping that he would be, this first round tight end prospect that's really good on the move. And he made a couple nice contested catches, but he's small. And I don't think he has a ton of juice or athleticism. I was a little bit disappointed in him. I don't know if you got to watch any of the tight ends this week, but he was
a little bit,
yeah,
just in some of the team stuff, right? And that's the thing, right? Is that like he's this undersized tight end, move tight end type. But if you're going to be that, you really need to be a very good receiver. You really need to be a good mover. And he's, okay at those things, but okay is not going to cut it when you're, a detrimental piece in the run blocking game, or, if you're just not a two-way tight end at all. It reminds me of, there was a kid from Oregon a couple years ago, I feel like, or maybe it was Washington. I can't remember. He was kind of an undersized tight end.
Hunter Bryant. Yeah.
Hunter Bryant. Yeah.
But he actually reminded me of the other one, Harrison Bryant, the one that went to Florida.
No, that's the one I think I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah. Where plays for the Browns now. Yep.
Yeah. It's like you watch him and you're like, okay, he's doing some stuff against college competition, but he doesn't look dynamic, right? No. He just looks like he's a bad matchup for these college defenses. And you kind of get him in with some other guys that are of higher ilk and better competition.
Yep.
And he doesn't look as dynamic. He's not pulling away from these guys the way he was in the tape. And so I think I didn't watch a ton of Trey McBride, but of college. But I see a guy who I can tell what happened here, right? Like he gets to the larger competition and he just doesn't have the athleticism to do the things that he did against the competition that he faced in college.
Yep.
And without that athleticism, and certainly not having the size or background as a blocker, it's like he's a little bit of nothing. Like there's just, what I'm saying? There's nothing really for him to hang his game hat on, really.
I agree. I was really excited about him kind of going into the week, and I've been pretty disappointed. I actually have liked a couple of the other tight ends better. Jimmy Ruckert from Ohio State.
I really like Ruckert.
Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah. Linebackers. Have you got a chance to watch any of the linebackers here? Because I've got a couple that I'd like to talk about.
I honestly haven't, so please go ahead.
Chad Muma is the best one there. He's the linebacker from Wyoming. Not all that dissimilar from Logan Wilson, who the Bengals drafted, I believe it was in the 3rd round 2 years ago. 6'3", 242. Doesn't really play at that size, but it's super instinctful, can run sideline to sideline. I think he's really interesting. Probably like for Dallas, it'd have to be a 2nd round pick, and I wouldn't hate it. I think that's a good spot to draft linebackers. The other one that I want to mention is Troy Anderson from Montana State. And if you don't know anything about him, he's popped a few times. So I was doing some research on him before we jumped on the show. In 2018 at Montana State, he was the first team all Big Sky quarterback.
Yeah. Okay, this is the guy. Yeah, I heard about this.
He has the Montana State record for most rushing yards, most passing yards, most touchdowns. moved to the defensive side of the ball this year and was the All Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. And when you watch him on some of these tapes, and he actually just popped here as I'm kind of watching this side, but like he doesn't have any idea what he's doing yet. But he is such a natural football player that that's somebody I would gamble on day 3, I think.
Yeah, and Montana too. I mean, I know it's doesn't sound super impressive, but Montana is like up there with North Dakota State as one of the top teams that kind of consistently is making that trip to the championship game, the FCS championship game. So I think that this is an interesting guy to watch. I mean, these are the kind of guys that you take a flyer on, right? Like he's got the kind of tools that you want. He just had kind of a match of experience, but this is how guys like Taysom Hill, guys that are like, that have abilities to play football, but just could never find a spot to kind of individually develop. I'm not suggesting that we want a Taysom Hill, but I'm saying that, there are guys out there that are physically talented football players that just have not found a position yet that are worth kind of taking a chance on, because I mean, it's like this, right? You draft a guy like this in the 5th round, right? Or 4th or 5th round. You could do that, or draft a guy who's been playing the position his entire life and has kind of, hit a ceiling, what he is. Or you could take a flyer on this guy who has a level of athleticism that might be better than a typical 4th or 5th rounder, but he just hasn't put it all together yet. And your hope is that he, during the course of being a professional football player, that they can learn the techniques that could make them better than any 4th or 5th rounder that you could potentially draft. So,
and this is why we love the Senior Bowl, right? Yeah. Because you get to see players like this that you normally wouldn't get to see, right? It's fun. Anybody else you want to mention from your film study last night?
I mean, I gotta mention just because I had such high expectations based on what other people were saying, and this is my own fault for this, but I'm losing his name, Marquise Hayes, right? The guard from OU. I just see a guy who's really, really struggled on both days, in my opinion. I've seen a guy whose hands have been really sloppy. He's, they'll get outside. He'll hug a guy as opposed to getting his hands inside. Several different times I saw him get his hands on the outside of the shoulder pads and grabbing guys. I saw him tackle one of the guys that came after him. There was one play where, and again, as much as anybody else yesterday, he was really struggling with the footing yesterday. So that's part of it. But at the same time, he has all of these tools. Like I think he's 6'5", like 315 or something like that. And he's got long arms. He tries at times to kind of throw like a one-arm punch, like a stab, almost like he's a tackle. But I've also watched him do that and completely whiff and then get beat by a swim inside. I saw him at one point, try to throw a block and then just took a dude's helmet off because it went so high. And I was like, I just feel like this is a guy who has a lot of talent, probably has some good coaching, but has sloppy technique when things break down a little bit. So I just feel like he's a guy that, despite kind of some of the hype coming in, really needs some work to kind of focus his technique down a little bit. Get his hands working with his feet really is the key thing, and just better accuracy with his hand targeting. It will be helpful for him.
So we've seen a bunch of these Oklahoma interior offensive linemen over the last couple of years, right? Like Drew Samia, Ben Powers. We saw Creed Humphrey last year. I don't think he measured up to any of those guys, at least from what we've seen so far, right?
I mean, physically and athletically, I could see why there was excitement. There is excitement about him, but I also feel like, like when you're at a major university, like a top, university, you're getting some of the best coaching you're going to get in the country. And this guy, like, it feels like for as much as he's played, for as big of the universities that he's played at, he should have a little bit more developed techniques, or at least the techniques should be more ingrained in his game, right?
I agree.
Because that's ultimately the problem, is that you see with all these players, right? They learn these techniques, and then when the play breaks down or when things get tough, they revert to something that is other than what they're taught to do, right? That just takes more and more reps of being in those situations to make it, second nature. It's just not that for him now. It's just not second nature right now. It feels like he's spending too much time doing what it takes to try to win the rep as opposed to working on his technique. And that the reason that's problematic is that he's going to be a penalty machine when he gets into the NFL, especially if he's got to deal with some of the ref crews that the NFL's got. There's going to be some games he'll probably get 5 or 6, holding calls just because he's got his hands out in a bad spot. He'll get a hands to the face penalty, or he's tackled a dude because the guy got past him because he tried to throw a one-armed stab inside at guard, and he got beat by a 320-pound guy who is a ton faster than he is. So I'm just concerned about it just based on, the hype I heard about the guy coming in.
Last thing before we head out, who would you say is the best player you've seen so far at the Senior Bowl?
Now, I mean, again, I have not watched as much of the wide receivers and the cornerbacks.
You're not missing anything there. No, I promise they're not that group.
From what I've heard, that's the truth. I think, to me, the best player I've seen is Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. I think he's just been out there dominating every rep. It seems to be playing at a different speed than a lot of these other guys. He's not completely a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. None of these guys are. But I think that what you see in him is a trump card, a way to win, right? And then on top of that, he has a developing set of counter moves, whether that's the spin move, whether that's an arm over inside. I think, the key thing with a lot of these speed pass rushers is they have to have a second thing. It cannot just be speed, because you're not going to win that way. These guys will overset on you. And it's like I talked about yesterday, right? Like what ended up happening, the tackles started learning their lessons. They started oversetting this guy. And then, Johnson took a couple snaps of kind of just running into the guys. And then I'm like, well, maybe that's all he's got. But then you see a couple snaps later, he's spinning inside. He's overarming inside. He's setting them up outside to go back inside. So that to me shows a guy who is not super advanced, but more advanced than you. He's sufficiently advanced for what you're looking for in a kind of a top 100 pick. I don't really know where his draft stock is, but I mean, I certainly would be interested in that range.
Once he learns how to long arm offensive tackles, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to be really good because he's got long arms. He's very athletic. He checked a lot of boxes this week, though, between the measurements, the play at the Senior Bowl. He already has great production. We'd not be surprised at all. Ends up being a first-round pick because it's what happens. Sometimes you go and you do really well at the Senior Bowl. You go perform well at the Combine. Wouldn't shock me at all.
There's really no reason he shouldn't be, especially with the idea that we've been talking about, that I have to think that more and more teams are going to start banking on athletic potential because of the way that things have turned out the last few drafts.
I agree. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the Senior Bowl. We don't care about the Senior Bowl game on Saturday too much, do we?
I mean, we'll talk about it on Monday, but no, the practices is obviously where we're
today. Thursday's the big practice day because it's your last practice day. It's a padded practice, a lot of competition stuff, a lot of team stuff. We'll learn a lot today when we get to go back and watch the film. So follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. Download us wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Follow the show at Locked On Cowboys on Twitter. Follow Landon at McCool BCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you next time.